This lighting's irredeemable. I apologize in advance. On your knees, prospect. BDSM, gay biker romance, Kings of Hell MC3. There is freedom in blacking boots for the right man. Jake, Kings of Hell MC prospect, obedient, desperate for approval. Vars, dominant, stern, undead, naturally. Jake is itching to become a patched member of the Kings of Hell MC. For 2 years, he has toiled as the only prospect. So when a new guy swans in and thinks he'll get the patch in just no time because he's got friends in high places, Jake is there to stand in his way. Only that this guy is older, more experienced, drives a Harley, and has the kind of boots Jake craves to lick. But he won't, because he only fucks patches. I can relate. Vars is ready to find a new home in the Kings of Hell MC after a messy relationship led him straight to hell. Doubt the literal hell? I doubt it. In comparison, the pretty blue-eyed prospect could just be the pleasant rebound he needs. The boy is a brat, but that could be amended with a firm hand and a gag. It's hurting, guys. It's hurting. If only Jake was ready to admit his submissive needs, Vars would gladly take him under his wing. That is, until he finds out something inhuman resides in Jake. Vars didn't cheat death only to call out to it again. But stuck together in one room, keeping each other's secrets, they might just have to become allies, no matter how unwilling. Because if there's something Vars can't resist, it's a boy with pleading eyes. I took a bit of a break from reading these books because this book in particular was hard. It was painfully hard. I got about 70% of the way through and I just couldn't do it anymore. I was like, fuck. The main reason being the BDSM. And okay, I am not a part of the BDSM community. I don't know jack shit. Oh, look at my battery. Oh no, my battery. Well, we'll ride this for however long it goes. I do not know jack shit about the BDSM community, but I don't think that's BDSM that I was reading. I really don't. It just comes off across as someone's... Okay, you know how 50 Shades of Grey got into, I wouldn't say trouble, but people definitely had an issue with their portrayal of BDSM as kind of, this one person that's just getting dragged along and... I don't know, like just a lot of stuff that's just kind of like, is that what that is? Just someone getting bossed around and the other person being all like, father knows best. I know people are into it. I'm not into it. So it was really hard for me. And I guess I don't mean to kink shame, but that's going to be this video. At least the kink that I've seen in this. Because, okay, Jake, I like Jake as a character. I genuinely do. I like Vars as a character, genuinely do, but I don't like this idea that Jake's entire personality is like, I want to shine your shoes, massa, and like, I don't know, it just is like, not really my style, and it's like, on top of this, I'm like kind of gonna go and like almost talk about the ending a little bit, but it's like, Jake wants to become a full patch. He wants to become a respected biker in a biker gang. And he's doing this while also wanting to shine shoes and like play the submissive and do this and that. And like at a certain point, after him and Vars sort of get into a relationship together, Vars starts like undermining him to the rest of the crew. And I'm like, I just don't buy it. I don't buy that any motorcycle gang is going to be like, this is the guy we want in charge. This is the guy that we want as part of our crew. This guy that like takes orders and can't stand up for himself and wants to be spanked all the time. I'm like, I don't know. I don't know about that. So, I've been ragging on it for a bit. You might think that I absolutely hated this story. Not true. I hated most of the story. Actually, no, not even most. I hated, I want to say 30% of the story. For a while there, it was getting really good, and then the Vars and Jake get into an official relationship, and I just lost the thread from there. The story sort of starts off where Jake goes into, I think it's the sex torture dungeon that William Thane had, and he finds this like rat, bat, monkey creature. And for some odd reason, it like, I don't know, dissolves, there's some black goo, and something goes into Jake, and then he starts finding he has the ability to shoot flames out of his mouth, and he just has powers now. And I'm like, okay, I can get behind this story, you know? It's a little bit different than the whole deals with the devil bit, but it's still kind of like in that zone. So Jake's dealing with all this, like trying to keep the flames down and everything. And Vars comes in, and Vars is working for Mr. Magpie, who I think we've talked about in a previous video, but haven't seen too much about him yet. So Vars is working for Mr. Magpie, and Mr. Magpie wants Vars to be his mole within the Biker MC Club. So I think he's working as an accountant, doing a lot of like money laundering and this and that. But naturally, Vars is more than he seems, much more in fact. It turns out that Vars is a bit of an immortal, and he had a relationship in the past with a crazy ex named Damon, who's an assassin masochist, but he was like too much of a masochist for kind of what Vars was looking for. Vars just sort of wanted a good boy, you know? And I guess Damon was like, choke me, daddy. And Vars is all like, I just don't know about this, so I'm just stepping out, you know? And I guess Damon, being the crazy ex, is like, no, fuck you. And then he kills Vars. And then Mr. Magpie's like, no, not my Vars. And then he brings Vars back to life with like some kind of a stone. Like there seems to be like a ruby theme going on. Anyways, so Vars is effectively immortal. And he's got a crazy ex-Damon who was brought up, and you're like, okay, this guy's definitely going to show up, and this guy's going to be awesome, and I hope he's a big character in the next book. Perish the thought. Damon is neither awesome nor in the next book. Damon dies like a punk bitch in this book, and it's really sad, because I think out of everyone, I like Damon the most. It's like, yeah, crazy, like, I don't know, he's described as like, you know, really hot and blonde and this and that, and I don't know, he just had so much potential, and it was just squandered, man, just super squandered. Like at one point Damon goes and like kind of crashes a wedding, and then at the very end he sort of plants some explosives and blows up the whole club and everything like that, which leads to some events. I'm getting a bit ahead of myself, so let's rewind. So Vars and Jake meet, and at first they're trying to play the whole, you know, hate at first sight kind of angle, but really quickly it just devolves into Jake being like, I want to shine that man's boots, which is like his thing. That is just Jake's thing, and I fucking hate it so much. It's, I just don't know, man. So anyways, Vars is also like, pretty boy, I can get into that. And so naturally they start fucking, you know, like that's just how this goes. And in among that, Jake is still kind of dealing with the fireball spitting, breathing fire bit. And then somewhere along the line, a black goo starts to come out of him, envelops him, and he turns into a gargoyle. Like a big giant gargoyle that you can ride on and everything. But it turns out he's the gargoyle now that was like guarding the lair, like an evil lair of Thane in a sex torture dungeon. So how does that work? I don't know, but it was kind of cool. So anyways, it now turns out that Jake is an immortal gargoyle named Azog, and well, actually, like, he has Azog inside of him, and Vars is an immortal. It sounds like a match made in heaven. Something or other happens, and Elliot from the previous book is like doing a bit of research while doing some sort of like a skit for YouTube about like the history of Thane's sex torture dungeon and everything, and he ends up finding a bit of a diary, and it turns out that one of the servants of Thane was sort of taken over by Azog, and after 3 transformations he was just stuck permanently. So Jake's transformed once. If he transforms 2 more times, he's hella boned. And that's sort of like the dramatic tension in a lot of the story, because not a whole lot actually happens in this story. It's sort of pretty weak on the plot, if I'm to be honest. So one of the big events that happens in this book is Laurent and Beast finally have their wedding. It's glorious, it's magical, it's beautiful, and in the middle of it, Damon attacks. And I don't quite remember how that goes. Like, you'd think that'd be a bigger event that like sticks in your mind a little bit, but all I remember is like I think he chokes Vars out a little bit, and then he kind of does his "yeah, I'm a villain" bit and like fucks off to somewhere. I really don't remember what happens in that scene. I'm pretty sure Vars gets choked, and like, you know, Damon's all like, "Oh, I see you found some new pretty boy to replace me," like da da da, you know, just doing the usual, like, he's such a one-note villain and he could have been so much better. Wait, that's not how that went down at all. So I was reading my notes and I guess, yeah, Damon tries to kill Vars with a garrote because that's what you do. And then I guess I got my timelines mixed up because somewhere along the line, okay, anyways, Jake transformed into a gargoyle twice. I guess he transforms at the wedding to save Vars from Damon. But regardless, somehow or another, Jake finds out that all the supernatural stuff exists. So they end up all going to Mr. Magpie's to just kind of have a bit of a conference and a like, what's going on here, bro? So they get to Mr. Magpie's, and Mr. Magpie reveals that he is actually a piece of Baal that like separated off from him. Because I guess I'm reading the 4th book right now, and it seems like things can do that. Like in the other dimension, you are like one of a whole, and then I don't know, you can like split off and come into the human world and be like exist as a part of something, you know, like exist as your own little thing, even though you were a part of this larger thing. Anyways, it's a whole thing. So Mr. Magpie is part of Baal, and he's sitting there, he's like, you know, I kind of like the world. I really don't want it to get destroyed, which is what Bale's going to do. That's why he's getting you to do all these like funky rituals and stuff like that. He's like trying to gain enough energy so that he can eventually, I guess, destroy the world or take over the world. Mr. Magpie, he's like sitting there, he's flamboyant as hell. I think he was wearing a cape when we're introduced to him. He's like, I'm just too busy eating good food and doing my own thing, and I just don't want that to happen. So stop him, please. So in order to stop him, they have to get something called a pigeon heart, which is like a special ruby of some kind. And not much comes of it. We're just sort of like, hey, all this information dump, and also you need the pigeon heart, and that's that, you know? And then like, this is around the part when I sort of kind of gave up on the book for like a month or two. Right after that, it just goes into like the longest, most extended sex scene. And I'm like, I was really into the plot. Normally I'm all for that. I'm like, yeah, bring on the sex. I don't mind. But this was just so bad. Like, oh man, it was just a whole lot of spank me. And then it's like, and then he spanked him till his bottom was red. It's like, I don't know, if you're gonna show me some BDSM shit, like have it be like just get into it, you know. It's like, man, they like, I think the furthest they go is like the whole ball gag thing maybe, and it's like lame. Come on, man. Like really give me something. I don't know. I was just bored to tears. And honestly, it's just kind of cringy reading stuff like this sometimes, where you almost get the impression that the authors aren't overly comfortable with what they're writing and they don't really know what to do. Because you can tell an author that's really comfortable with the subject matter and they're like really delving deep into it, and you're like, all right, I respect the artistry here. It's like, yeah, it's a gratuitous sex scene, but the good writing is still good writing. That's my point. And I just don't feel like this was good writing. It wasn't titillating. I kind of felt uncomfortable watching it or listening, reading it. It was just kind of like, I don't know, like this is already, like I've definitely read BDSM and somewhat enjoyed it, but for the most part, these kind of books, they just do it in a really amateurish and I feel kind of childish, dumbed down sort of way, where, I don't know, everything is just sort of reduced to like, tell me what to do, sir. And the dude's like, I will protect you because you don't know what to do for your own self because you're clearly not an adult mentally or whatever. And then it's just a lot of spanking. And I've just rambled on about this for how long now? It's just such a pet peeve of mine. And the main reason it's a pet peeve of mine is it shows up everywhere. Doesn't matter what you're reading. Like, I'm kind of on this, male kick right now, but I read the straight shit a lot too, and it's there too. And there it has like a nice misogynistic thing where it's like, pitiful female, you can't be trusted to live your own life, now get onto the bed. And then it's just like a lot of spanking scenes, and I'm like, who's into this? Who is into this? Apparently a lot of people, because it's everywhere. And I just can't fuck with that. I just can't. So, I guess back to the book. So after this long, extended sex scene, very unfortunate. I'll be honest, I kind of like mostly tried to skim over it because like I tried to sit there and like read a page. And then I was like, it's not doing a damn thing for me. So anyways, they end up going from Mr. Magpie's place, which is in New York, back to the clubhouse. And there they are presented with their patches, and they have like a big bash, a big party, and everyone's extremely happy. And kind of the scene I mentioned earlier where Vars immediately begins to undermine Jake's authority in front of the others comes into play because they have to go steal the ruby heart, and it's going to be like a bit of a heist thing. And so Gray volunteered because I guess he's a bit of a heister. And Jake was all like, well, I could come along as your backup, as your muscle. And Vars is like, no, you can't do that. You don't know what you're signing up for. What if Azog gets out? Da, 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 da. And then one of I think it's Knight, he actually speaks up. He's like, dude, you can't be undermining Jake in front of everyone. Like, he's his own man, you know? It's like, he may be your boy in the bedroom, but here he's his own man. And I don't think the lesson sinks in because Damon comes and he ends up lighting off a bunch of explosives, and it like sets a bunch of the clubhouse on fire, and like beams start collapsing and shit like that, and some of them make it out, like Vars and Knight and Jake and Elliot, they all make that out, or they all make that out. They all make it out. Oh no, my battery's about to die again. I'll try to quickly wrap this up. Anyways, so Jake is like, I need to go in there. There's people in there. I need to rescue them. And Vars is like, over my dead body. So he uses the collar, which can like sort of influence Jake to do what he wants. And he's like, no, you stop. And then Jake starts crying. He's like, let me do this. Like, trust me to be my own man. And Vars eventually is like, oh my God, this is not the kind of dom I wanted to be. And so, I don't know. He lets Jake do what he needs to do. And so Jake goes in and he ends up finding Gray and Gray's dad, Rev. And Gray is like partially trapped under a beam, like his arm. Basically, he loses his arm, right? And so Jake realizes that he doesn't have any other options. And so he transforms into Azog. And right away, I was like, this isn't going to be permanent. Like, it's a fake out. Of course it's a fake out. Oh, I should actually mention another fake out. You know how I mentioned that Vars is immortal? So Damon comes and he like stabs Var in the neck. And this is just before he lights off the explosive. And for some odd reason, Vars, like, it's all built up as like, you can die, you know, like for realsies. Like, just because you're immortal doesn't mean you can't get stabbed in the neck and die. So he gets stabbed, he's bleeding out. And then for some reason he like eats Damon's throat and like, I don't know, regains his power and is still immortal. And he's like, what the F? And then I guess he calls up Mr. Magpie like, what's up, bro? Mr. Magpie's like, I don't know how this spell works, because Mr. Magpie was the one that cast it on him when Vars died in the first place because Damon killed him. Anyways, Damon's a bad ex. So I was like, all right, they faked us out once, they're gonna fake us out again. And not like 2 pages later, through the power of seemingly love, Jake turns back into a human, and I'm like, fuck off, man. Like, way to kill any stakes in your book. Like, You've spent all this time establishing that though Vars is immortal, he can die. Though Jake is immortal, he can transform into Azog, and there's going to be all these consequences, and then you just fake right out. I was so not happy with that. So anyways, my battery's about to die, so I'll try to quickly wrap this up. Frick, what happens from there? Right. So it turns out that it wasn't the power of love that saved Jake. It was Gray who made a pact with the devil. And Gray was all like, let him be human. And so now Gray is like involved in all of this crap. And then it sets us up for the next book, which I'm reading and it seems to be way better. But yeah, mostly didn't enjoy this one. Feel free to give it a skip. I think I've covered all the major points and everything like that. I don't know what else I can say from here. Just everyone stop doing amateurish BDSM. It's embarrassing.